Well, blessings, everybody. This is Dale. Thank you so much for joining with me today on the Word Podcast. We're continuing on in Proverbs. We're in the 23rd chapter, and we've gotten up to verse 10. So let's start there. Verse 10 says this: Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you. So that's verses 10 and 11. It's one sentence. And as you remember, there's all these little things that we're being told what to do. Early in the previous chapter, the Proverbs actually says something about, hey, I'm about to give you 30 words of wisdom right here. And this is part of that. And we see this don't move the ancient landmark thing again. We just saw that a few verses back. In other words, don't cheat your neighbor. You would have those spikes, you would have those things driven in the ground that would show the boundary line between you and your neighbor. Don't you edge that thing over 6 inches one night. And don't you come back 6 months later and edge it over another 6 inches. You don't do that. Don't move the ancient. Notice, the ancient, what does that mean? The long enduring, through antiquity type of thing. Don't do that. Or enter the fields of the fatherless. Well, why would you go into the fields of the fatherless? Well, the idea is you're dealing with people who are orphans, okay? They have no father, and you're encroaching on them, and you're entering into their fields. You're moving your landmark, your boundary into their fields. It may be something as simple as you're just a thief and you're going in there stealing stuff from them because they have no father to watch over them. But he says, you don't do that. And then he tells us why. For their Redeemer is strong. That's an interesting word. A lot of the new translations, New American Standard, ESV, the Berean, they all capitalize that word Redeemer. They capitalize it. Now, remember, capitalization, punctuation is a form of commentary. It's a way that we comment upon what a passage means. The King James and the Lexham do not capitalize that. Well, when it's capitalized, what do you think? Well, immediately out of most of our background, we're thinking, oh, that's speaking of God, that's speaking of Jesus, or something like that. Well, perhaps, yeah, well, maybe not. Because the word Gaal is what the Hebrew word is. And that means to redeem or to act as a kinsman redeemer. That whole thing you see in the book of Ruth, it means to avenge or revenge, to do the part of a kinsman. Remember the context of this sentence, the fatherless. So they do not have kinsman immediate, but they do have one. And this Redeemer is strong, and he will plead their cause against you. So who is this Redeemer? Well, I think it is a picture of the Most High God. Okay. And so is it okay to capitalize that R? Well, yeah, maybe. Would we do better not to capitalize it like the King Jimmy doesn't capitalize it? Probably so. Just makes us dig a little more into it. But he's saying this, hey, there is one that's going to watch over this fatherless. And if you move your ancient boundaries against them, if you enter into their fields, he's watching, and he's going to plead their cause against you. Now, verse 12, apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. So, New American Standard says, apply your heart to discipline. The idea really is that of instruction, of discipline. When we think of instruction, we think of, sitting in the classroom. This word is a little heavier than that. It means discipline, correction, chastening. Apply your heart to that type of discipline, that type of instruction. Focus yourself upon this. And then your ear to words of knowledge, the discernment, understanding, wisdom, knowledge. So keep your heart oriented toward this, instruction and discipline. Keep your ears toward words of knowledge. Verse 13, do not withhold discipline from a child. Well, let me pause right here. We're in the middle of a sentence. We've seen this before, right? Just a few verses back, we saw the discipline, the rod of discipline, and things like that. Listen what it says here. Do not withhold discipline from your child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Whoa, whoa. Yeah. And so it's really the biblical support for what we call corporeal punishment. Corporeal means of the body, corpus, the body. In other words, putting a little pain in the body as punishment. And people say, well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Well, you better back up a second. It doesn't really matter what you believe. What saith the word of the Lord? He says, if you strike him with a rod, he will not die. The next verse, verse 14, if you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheol. Sheol is the underworld, the place of the dead. It's translated all sorts of things in Scripture: grave, hell, pit, underworld, Sheol. And so you will save him from that if you strike him with a rod. In other words, you're disciplining him. You're letting him know this is the way you should go. No, you haven't gone the correct way. You refuse to go the correct way. Now, this isn't talking about when somebody makes what we would call an honest mistake. Okay. What this is driving, and what we'd seen earlier about this, driving that rebellious thing out of a child. Remember, it said that a child is like that. His heart is like that. No, you're bringing correction. If you strike him with a rod, he's not going to die. If you strike him with a rod, you're going to save his soul from Sheol. You're going to guide him in the right direction. So does this mean that it's proper to strike him with a rod in the way of what we in the world would actually call physical abuse? Okay, the type of thing. In other words, you're crossing a line somewhere there. Where is that line? Well, the line is where your heart is. If you are disciplined with the heart of the Most High God, yea. If you're disciplined out of the heart of man, out of the heart of a soul, out of anger, out of wrath, no. No. You want to have the heart of God. And he actually starts talking about the heart here. For the next, 3 verses, 3, 4, 5, maybe more than that, verses. And he says this, verse 15, my son. Whoa. Let me stop right here. My son. And remember how I'd said that earlier in looking at these immediate passages? When we started Proverbs, it was being spoken to a son. And then he, first 2, 3, 4 chapters, maybe more than that, he speaks to the son. And then he starts dealing with other things. And then all of a sudden here in 22nd proverb, he starts speaking, and it looks like he's speaking to his son, but he doesn't say it forthrightly. Here he says it forthrightly. My son. So now we know. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will be glad. Let me read 16. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. That's one of the greatest things that parents experience. That your offspring, your son, your daughter, having a heart that is wise. What does it do to your heart? It says, my heart too will be glad. ESV says, my inmost being will exult. The other translations say rejoice. And that's what it means. It means rejoice. But that word exult, it means a triumphant type of thing. It is the utmost of rejoicing. It's the rejoicing above all rejoicing. You know, you have exult, you have exalt. That exalt is rejoicing when your lips speak what is right. When a daughter's lips speak what is right, and it comes from a heart of wisdom, that is joy beyond measure. It really is. And the writer of the proverb knows that and told us that. Well, my time's up. We'll continue in the next episode. I'll see y'all then. Goodbye.